All right, so here's the real question. Let's see here. What does this look like at night?
Oh, look at that.
Ooh,
That's cool.
that's nice. Look at that.
Hello, this is Harold Halfdan, and welcome to the Minecraft Archaeology Challenge miniseries. I'm a former archaeologist who enjoys playing Minecraft, and in this miniseries, I've been kidnapped by Daskalos, who is a working archaeologist who created a custom archaeological site that I need to excavate. In this challenge, it wasn't just me who he grabbed. He also grabbed YouTubers MC Oda and MillyCraft, who are also independently excavating their own copies of the site. In today's episode, I'm walking Daskalos through my now completely excavated and reconstructed site and giving him my archaeological site interpretation so he can do his grading. Now, just to set expectations, this episode's going to be quite the talky video because it's basically me just talking and answering some of Daskalos' questions. Also, if you haven't previously watched any of the other episodes in the miniseries, that's fine, but you might want to go back and watch them so there's context about what I'm talking about. Okay, with that out of the way, enjoy the episode.
All right. We are here. Would you like to walk me through it?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Let's fly down there, I think.
Yeah. It's quite the drop.
Yeah. Okay, so just from the start, I left a lot of the site that wasn't my recreation as it was in the excavation, right? So I didn't try and cover up any of the excavation lines or my grids that I didn't excavate or nothing like that. So I just focused my recreation on the area of the architectural structures, and where it was obvious the decorations were. Some buildings, I went where I could make what I thought were decent educated guesses within the structure. I would decorate within the structure based on what I was able to see. Others, if I didn't think I had a good guess of how to decorate it, I just left it at the architecture and the artifacts that I found. So,
excellent. Okay.
And I will explain why I did what each one. So let's maybe the road, since we're standing here. This was, in my mind, pretty obvious where the road was. I didn't see a whole lot of branching roads, but I kind of left the road as I was finding it. These lantern lights, these street lights, I recreated like I did here because specifically this one we're standing in front of, I found laying, and so in front of where it is. So from this base here out to around here with a lantern on top of it. And so based on that height, I was able to judge the height, and then the kind of off to the side, there was one of these. And then there was a couple of others down the road, and they all seemed to be on this chiseled stone as well. So whenever I would see one of these chiseled stones along the road, I would recreate one of these street lights. So that was my interpretation there.
All right.
These residences, I kept the foundation as you see it there with the cobblestone. There were more openings, but in each one of these of small hut-like, or what I'm interpreting as small hut-like residences, the floor was this pattern where it was like a 3x3 with an extra one out there. So I interpreted that as the door was always on that little outskirt mud. The packed mud for the walls is what I interpreted that had collapsed into the site. And then in some of these, there was larger openings. Like, for instance, in this one specifically, there was like these weren't there in my recreation. But I basically completed what I thought the wall would be and just assumed there was some blocks that were missing or stolen after the site was destroyed. The ceiling, I went with this this here bamboo slab, and I just interpreted that the bamboo slab was maybe thatch, or maybe it is bamboo, but I did that because in one of these residences in the floor there was one bamboo slab in the floor, and so I interpreted that as a remnant of the roof structure. But just to be clear, the roof shape is completely my conjecture. Like, I don't know what the roof shape looked like. I just made each one look a slightly different. I put the campfires where I did because in most of these huts, there was a single charcoal that was found, and I interpreted that as a hearth or some sort of heating element, like a fire or something. So I put a campfire there in each one
Okay.
of these huts that had it. In the huts that, or these residences that did not have that, I did not include that because I couldn't guess where it would be. Because I was interpreting as a residence, I put beds in it, but
Okay.
there weren't any beds in any of these. That was just my guess because I was interpreting it as a residence. So that's essentially these 6 residents. This area here, which on my map I labeled this, I called this one the Weavers and this one the Smokers house. And that's really just because, and I don't know if, just to be honest, if this was 2 distinct structures or one structure, as I've done that here with a conjoining roof line. I'll explain why I did it like this for reasons. But the floor I left kind of almost as is. Sometimes it was dirt, sometimes it was the sandstone. Where there was grass, I kind of filled it in with the sandstone. But my interpretation was that since I was finding sandstone here, that was the dirt structure. You can see that there's a weavers here. I left this structure pretty much as it was. Again, cobblestone foundations for the walls, mud brick, and packed mud for the actual wall structure itself. I made the height what I did because when it was clear that some of the wall had fallen down, either both in and or around the structure, and so where it hadn't fallen down, or where I could clearly show that the wall had just tipped, off of the foundation, it was kind of too high here, and so that's why I made it too high, kind of as a universal around the structure. So that's
Okay.
I put these beams where I did because there were lines of charcoal on the ground that corresponded to where these beams would go. So my interpretation was that charcoal was, maybe there's a fire event. Actually, on the whole site, I kind of interpreted it as like an earthquake that led to fires. There was clearly a destruction layer throughout the whole site, but it looked like there was a fire certainly in this structure that corresponds to charcoal related to the beam structures. And so that's
Okay.
and because the charcoal lines matched between the 2 structures, if you looked at where the lines were, that's why I interpreted it as one beam that kind of spanned both lines. And so that's why I conjoined the 2 structures like I did.
Okay.
This one was pretty clear that this was a marketplace with market stalls. So I didn't do much changing where the foundations were or where the actual stalls were. I put barrels where the artifacts were found. So in this one, there was these wooden slabs. And so I kind of interpreted them as either wooden slabs that were being sold or just wooden slabs making, just being used maybe as, I don't know, dividing areas for that stall. But there was enough wooden slabs that I just kind of interpreted that maybe they're selling wood here, wooden planks or whatnot.
Okay.
Let's see. This one, I think, is a candle shop because there was string and there was dye. This one had a single stone slab in it, so I wasn't clear whether or not they were selling stone slabs, and actually that was located right here. So I kind of piled up some stone slabs here, maybe in case they were selling stone slabs, but I also thought that maybe it was a stone slab in a grindstone, so that's why I put a grindstone there. Is potentially maybe they're sharpening tools or something in that shop. These 2 stalls had bones in it. It's the only bones on the whole site. And so I interpreted that as, I don't know if it's specifically chickens, but, some sort of food stuff, some sort of animal, that died in these 2. I can't tell from a Mindstone bone if it's an animal bone or a skeleton or a, human remains or whatever, but
Right.
I just interpret it as chickens because it's a market stall.
Right.
But I also was on keen lookout for bones throughout, or actually weapons throughout this, because, in a destruction layer, this is also why I was leaning towards earthquake as the destruction layer, because if I'm not seeing bones, if I'm not seeing weapons, or if you're seeing those and it's a destruction layer, like that could possibly mean that the site was, sacked or destroyed in some sort of violent event, war or whatever. I'm not seeing any of that. And so that's why I was interpreted as either just a fire that swept through, but I'm also seeing walls knocked down, specifically, and we'll get it to another site later. There's a couple pillars that have literally fallen to the direction of the south, you know? And so I kind of interpreted that as, you know, some sort of seismic event that then has knocked the walls down, knocked down flame, and then that's what's burnt the place down.
Okay. I have a question real quick.
Yeah.
You made the statement that these chiseled blocks had these sort of street lights on it.
Yes.
Right? And I'm looking at them, and they are stone brick wall segments that go up. So sort of these posts, these thin posts.
Yep.
But I noticed that in here you have wood.
Yep.
Why? Could you explain why you interpreted that as wood?
I interpreted it as wood because I didn't see any wall segments anywhere here like I did in the streets. And so I did it as wood under the assumption that if there was wall segments, I would see some sort of stone around here.
Okay.
And so because for lack of archaeological evidence, I chose an organic material that was potentially not uncovered archaeologically.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. No, I was just curious because I noticed the difference.
Yep. Being over to this site here, so this I kind of called it the terracotta shop, but honestly, it would be more than just terracotta. But there's a lot of terracotta. So both regular terracotta, colored terracotta, you know, some glazed terracotta, and then bricks also with a brick floor. There was a single piece of iron here, and so. I wasn't really sure if that was maybe an anvil or something. I wasn't really sure what that single piece of iron would represent. But because of the quartz, I thought maybe they were, you know, doing some, you know, cutting bricks or, you know, or some sort of something like that, right? You know, or cutting the quartz. And so that's why I interpreted maybe this iron as, what is this? The stone cutter. So, oh, and then this is straight up coal. So everything else that I excavated up to this point had been charcoal, but this was actually coal. So that's why I put it as if it was like a product to be sold, right? Or maybe that was going to be used by this shopkeeper in the furnace here. In this area, there was an iron of sus gravel, and then under it was charcoal. And so that's why I interpreted this as maybe some sort of like fireplace or something like that.
Okay.
This this actually was just like this. I left this as it was. At first I thought maybe this was a peaked roof, but I went and thought, well, maybe it's not a peaked roof because I didn't see any other evidence of a peaked roof in anywhere else in this building. So I thought maybe this was just a storing a supply of mud bricks, right? That it's just kind of stacked up. But but yeah, I wasn't quite clear. So I just kind of left it as I found it.
Okay, so then what is your interpretation of this building?
So I would think that this was owned by someone who works with clay and then sells, you know, or manufactures different terracotta or terracotta-like products, right?
Okay.
Or does stone cutting of some sort.
Okay.
So that's my interpretation of that.
All right.
The wagon is my invention. This was nothing to lead me to believe that there was a wagon there. It was just a big open space, and because it was right next to the market, and then because I'm interpreting this site as a warehouse, I thought that a wagon made sense, you know, in the recreation. But there's nothing to lead me to believe that there is actually a wagon here. To be clear about that, there were 3 areas here, and I left the hay bale where there was 2 wheat, so that's why I put some hay bales in there, as if this was a supply of wheat, and then I just left this one open, and then so there was some charcoal in this area, a charcoal in this area here, so that's why I put a table there. Again, similar kind of design for a little fireplace going up, and then these what are these? The cauldrons I
Mm-hmm.
left as is. So I actually like this part of why I put the wagon there is like maybe they did some sort of like wagon repair or like quenching of something or whatnot, you know. Not really sure. Wagon wheel repair or something. This area was all charcoal in here, pretty much. So that's why
Okay.
I basically put different kinds of wood in here from a wood supply perspective.
Okay.
Yeah. This I kind of did up as a forge. I know there's a smith right across the street, which we haven't talked about yet, but I did this one up as a forge because of the blast furnace. So maybe this is a smith as well with an anvil. This confused me a little bit. There's a little floating furnace way up high.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
so that didn't make a ton of sense to me at all as to why it was up high, because there was clearly a floor structure, but there was mud brick
Mm-hmm.
under it and mud brick over it. And so I couldn't make hide nor hair of what was going on with that. Like the
Okay.
strata just didn't make any sense to me.
Okay. Okay.
So the way I mocked it up is like, oh, and there was like charcoal all around here. There was like
Mm-hmm.
these stairs that were all in here. So I just interpreted the stairs as like maybe going up to a roof. There was a single one of these slabs. I think it was like there, I think. So that's why I did the roof like I did with these wooden slabs. But I
Okay.
basically just put the furnace up there. Maybe they're like, I don't know, taking wood and putting it up high, you know, and then just like that way they could feed it in. But I don't know. Maybe there was a
Okay.
chimney, but I don't know. I didn't really know what to do with that. Yeah, let's see. We haven't done. Let's see this one across
The
the
other
street.
side of
Have
the
we?
road. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. This one.
So this one here, this building here confused me a little bit, both structurally and kind of purpose-wise as well. So, and it wasn't so much purpose as far as what I found, but purpose as far as what I didn't find. So, excavating it, these were on the ground here. And so my first inclination was like, oh, well, it's a step up, right? So now we have an elevation change. But this has been the foundation for like all of these structures, either this deep slate or the cobblestone foundation. And so it was pretty clear where I thought the walls were. And it seemed odd that it would step up, but then there was nothing on the other side to indicate stairs going back down. And so it seemed odd that you'd have a step up and then have a 3-foot drop going down on the other side. So that's why I interpreted it as maybe if there was an earthquake, there was maybe a mud brick eave or something like that, and then this whole area above us like just collapsed, because literally it was just a line of, I think it looked like this, you know? And so it literally was this whole section just fell straight down. Is kind of how I interpret it. I don't know if I'm right. It seems odd that you'd have a mud brick eave like that. But you know, and I was also thinking like maybe there's something that like comes off, you know, like this, and then, you know, maybe there's, you know, what is it, something like, you know, something like this that would come up, you know. But again, I wasn't seeing anything archaeologically that would lead me to believe that, right? So I kind of left it as I was seeing it archaeologically. There was this here smithing table right smack dab in the middle of this little opening. The door is here again, similar with the area. I put the little fireplace area is what I mean, and then I put the pillars or the structure above where I did because of you know, where I found lines of the charcoal, and then I put these tables kind of hedging a little bit, where it's like if this is a work area for a smith, they're going to need places to work, and there's charcoal. So maybe if there were tables, those would potentially leave charcoal if there was a fire situation. But the thing that confused me about this being a smith is there's no anvil. Like I would expect, having found iron on the site, to have found an anvil somewhere. There's clearly a workbench here, you know, it's a smithing table, right? But you know, beyond this, I didn't find any other tools, but yeah, you know, or anything else that let any other artifacts. So this was basically this smithing table, and then, you know, just charcoal, and that was literally, oh, and then the single piece of iron that indicated what I thought was a grate. But beyond that, there was nothing that really lent itself to how this should be decorated.
Okay, so you think this is a smith doing what now?
working on smithy things. I don't know.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
I'm not sure. Like, it could be that it's not even like a metalsmith, right? It could be that it's a woodworking or whatever. Because I'm not sure what
Okay.
because the smithing table has a whole bunch of kind of tools around it, right?
Right.
And so what exactly they would be working on, I'm not totally sure. I just know that, this is clearly a workbench with tools around it. And then there was charcoal in the areas where these tables were. This thing initially I was calling a fountain, but it went a different direction. And I was calling it a fountain because all of these were on the ground, right? It was going the other direction, right? All the way around. And so it looked initially like this was a fountain, and then this was like a little area where maybe you'd go in and fill a bucket. Because this isn't a fountain, one of the things that confuses me just generally about this site is there's no water source. Like, there's a river, I think, out over this direction. There's a sea and potentially an ocean, but I have no idea if there's salt water or not. So if there's salt water, I have no idea. Like, there's no wells, there's nothing like that So, like, I at first thought this was a fountain, and this is where this city's getting its water supply from. But, again, don't know where they're getting their water from, but I kind of moved on from that theory and interpreted this as an altar. There was a single piece of charcoal, and honestly, you're not going to find a single piece of charcoal, I don't think, in a fountain,
Right. Okay.
It seems kind of... And then there was, like, what looked like kind of a more ceremonial, certainly based on what I saw in other areas of the site. So essentially, foundation with, like, a 2-pillar item on top of it. This one happened to be 3, so, but, like, that third one was, like, here, so I wasn't sure if it was just part of the pillar or part of the just the structure that had fallen, in what I'm calling an earthquake. So I just left it at 2 so it was consistent with the other 2, but potentially it should look like that, But for symmetry's sake, I just made it 2. I also, this structure had no walls, so these mud brick walls. But what it did have are mud brick stairs and slabs, so that it looked like... do I have any? Oh, I don't have any, actually. I was going to grab a stair so I could show you. But it had a stair in a configuration that it looked like maybe it was a wall that had fallen over, right? So it's like if you just take this and then, like, rotate it 90 degrees, as if this whole thing kind of fell in a spiral pattern, because it was essentially like, like that, and then like that, so it's like the stairs kind of went in a circle pattern. So I figured if these walls kind of fell to the side, they'd make a stair-looking structure. Yeah, so that's kind of why I interpreted it like I did, with a little opening for the fire to go up, and I took this whole structure of stone, and instead of being around the base, I just raised it up. Because it seemed symmetrical. And if that whole thing all collapsed, like if you think of the walls falling down, then it would basically just collapse straight downwards, right? So that's kind of why I just pulled it up 2 blocks. Okay, so this I called the House of the Scholar. And this is the only location beyond the temple complex that had pitcher pods and torch flowers, and they were located here. This one had this lectern and a little fireplace area, some charcoal, which I kind of put as logs for the fireplace, and then it had some books, and so I put the little areas here. I put the ladder kind of going up to the roof, because that seemed to make sense based on what I was seeing there. And then I just kind of copied it a little bit on the opposite side, because this was mostly a structure, a mirror image, one to the next. So this was books there, again a fireplace, more logs. This had a cartography table. This one, the thing about this site that confused me a little bit is this is the only site that had, from a flooring, this mud brick. So normally the mud brick was only wall structure, where this had mud brick on the floors. And so I thought maybe there's, like, I don't know, so this represented some stairs that then were going up to a second floor that then fell over, but there was nothing underneath it. It was all just dirt. So I would have expected there to be, some sort of flooring like I'm seeing here underneath that mud brick, because it would have been layered on top of it. No idea what these 3 walls were for there, so I just kind of left them like they were.
Okay.
I'm not sure if this should have been, and then maybe like a canopy, overlapping. I thought to maybe do that, but I also didn't see any more mud brick walls. So I would have thought that I would have seen something in the courtyard here to lend me to that interpretation. So because I didn't, I just kind of left it as a little bit of a mystery.
Gotcha.
So,
so then what is this structure then? What's the purpose of the structure?
So I think the purpose of the structure is for scholars to work out of. So likely related to the temple complex. So whether priests or religious scholars, or maybe it's a library or a house of learning or something like that. Because you see a cartography table and you see a lectern, and those are both items that you see within the temple. You see the pitcher pods and the torch flowers, and that's also items you see in the temple garden.
Okay.
So, this I interpreted, I was calling this the House of Black and White. So initially, although I'm kind of calling it like the Temple of Black and White, or the Temple Complex of Black and White right now. Originally, I wasn't sure if this was just maybe like a royal residence or a nobility residence, or whether or not it was going to be some sort of religious building. I interpreted it as a religious building. I made the pillars 5 tall because I think it was this one was actually found laying, kind of 5 long, and then this kind of like this. So I judged the height based on the tallest pillar that I found in the structure. And then I assumed that, and I didn't have enough material on the site to then make all of them 5, but I figured maybe someone came in later and stole them. That happens archaeologically, right? People reuse material instead of having to mine it themselves. So I didn't think that was that much of a leap of an interpretation. I didn't extend the roof over to the pillars because there was none of this deep slate. Like, I would have thought that I would have found deep slate here. And in fact, I didn't find deep slate, which I interpreted as the roof based on the fact that it was the top level, right? So either it was on the top of the wall structure here, or it was the top level found within each of these structures. So I figured that was the roof tiles, but I didn't find it outside of the walls anywhere. So like if there was a overhang, I would have thought that I would have found it like laying over here, right? Or I would have found it laying, out back behind. But I didn't see any of that. So I interpreted it kind of as a flat roof that then just meets the wall, and then when there was the earthquake, it collapsed inward. But I didn't see anything on the outside. So, but that's also why I didn't extend it, and why actually the pillars are taller than the actual temple itself, because the temple, I judged the walls based on the height of the wall structure that I found. So, heading in here, I put these where I found them, essentially, and there were some books here at this entrance, so I put them in a bookcase. But yeah, this pottery there's some broken potsherds here. Coming around here, there's a lectern, some more potsherds. There was this random spruce plank that was sitting here. But it didn't seem like that was part of the ceiling, because throughout this whole area, there was these polished diorite slabs and diorite slabs. So how it looked is like they would be laying on the ground, and then there would literally be the deep slate tile right on top of it. So I interpret it as like this is the roof, or this is the ceiling, right? And then the deep slate tiles is the roof. So
okay.
This is where the cartography table was, with some potsherds, right? Some plenty potsherds laying around here. As well as the sheaf, is that what this one's called?
Yep, sheaf. Yep.
This door wasn't here, but I used this door interpretation because that was the door on the far side of this room. But this is another entrance here into the temple, so you go right or left. This was a cool room. So this I interpreted as this was full of those mosaic tiles, this glazed terracotta, all on the floor. And so what I did is, because the floor was already finished in this kind of design, I assumed that this was actually a roof structure that then had fallen and collapsed. So what I did is I tried to recreate what that looked like from the ceiling coming down. And so I kind of did it in the sun shape because that's what it kind of looked like to me. Not every single mosaic tile matched up. Like I didn't just take it from ground level and then just like bring it all the way up. But I did it with enough of those so that I could get a sense of kind of what this looked like. So I interpreted this mosaic as there's a central sun with a sky surrounding it, and then, you know, grass around the outside, right? So it's like earth, sky, sun, essentially. So yeah, so this door actually was this door, so that's why I brought it in. There wasn't anything in this area that led me to, you know, guess what this room was for beyond maybe just like a vestibule to, you know, or to bridge the different sections of the temple complex. Because again, this walks right out, and that's also why I interpreted this as, you know, an altar, right? Because it's like right out the door of the temple. So maybe that's a divided space, right? So maybe, you know, this area is for doing sacrifices of whatever for the common people or the rest of the people in the settlement, but then this area in here, whether it's the mosaic room or, you know, over here are in the rest of the temple complex is for, I don't know, other people, right? Priests or whatnot. Now this, I noticed on the top of the tell before I excavated, there was this acacia log. So the acacia was on the top above this temple complex. And so what I interpret, and there wasn't, you know, I mean, acacia is not native to this specific biome, so I interpreted that as like a long remnant of trees that maybe had some kind of cultural or religious significance to this structure. So that's, so when I excavated this out, there was a single piece of dirt here where the floor wasn't, and it kind of corresponded to where the acacia was. And so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna maybe make this a holy tree within the structure. It's right by where I think this window is, which would give it some light. So that's what I did here. This is kind of like a holy of holies area. I don't know if you'd want to call it that specifically, but you know, specifically divided, right, where there's this light, and then there was these what is it, the soul sand was located kind of where you were standing that had fallen down. So there's a pillar of that. So I kind of stood the pillar up. This reminded me of the foundation and the two mud bricks from where I interpreted the altar. Right? Yeah. So that's also why I kind of brought that theme out there. There was a little brewing stand, a chest, I don't know, these banners I just put in place to kind of subdivide the space, because normally if you're going to see a temple, like, and you're going to see a holy area, you're not usually just going to have an open space that anyone can walk in, right? It's going to be divided by some sort of, you know, liminal foyer. And, you know, I was thinking maybe of that Hittite temple, you know, where it's just, you know, like here's a space, only high priests can walk into this area, religious officials, you know, or maybe the king. Right. And so that's kind of why I divided it like this. This was kind of a porch area, and then that overlooked the garden. And then outside in the garden, there was more acacia. I put acacia where there was a scattering of charcoal. So I thought maybe the acacia had burned in the fire. And then there was these pitcher pods and torch flowers in this area. So yeah. And then generally speaking, in this, if you hover over here above the temple, I mostly made it flat roofs, except where I thought archaeologically it made sense. So it's like in this area below it, there was these stairs, and so I kind of copied over a stair design instead of doing it a flat roof. And then same thing here. There was the area of the temple, or I'm calling it temple, was higher, specifically in this area, so I kind of built it up and then pulled it back down. And then I put none of this deep slate tile over this specific area, because in where the vestibule and then in the holy room, there was just the diorite slabs. There was none of the deep slate tiles over that area. So I thought that maybe the roof itself even was left kind of this more pure white color. So, Okay. Oh, the other thing I should note before you start asking questions, I went around and you can see these test trenches kind of further out. I was looking for like city walls, didn't find any city walls. I was looking for roads leading to and from the settlement, didn't find any roads. Over here where I thought there was maybe a harbor, I put some shovel tests in out over this area to see if there was any structures here. I did like 5 by 5 meters. Didn't find anything there. So I did kind of search outside of the surrounding areas for any of the anything else beyond just what was in this tell. But
as one does. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay.
So you can ask your questions. We'll see if I have any answers for them.
So, purpose of this, you're calling this a temple complex?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so then if it's a temple complex, why the lectern and the cartography table? What is going on here?
My interpretation is that normally, or at least make a generalization, in a lot of ancient cultures, temples doubled as places of learning and education. And so that's why I didn't think it was at all unusual to see a lectern, books, or a cartography table. So maybe this area of the temple complex is one that's used for learning, right? Or educating high-class individuals or royal, or noble family individuals, or just priests, right? I mean, it borders, right? It kind of called out that what I was calling the House of the Scholars, right, has the same areas, right? Has a cartography table and a lectern, and it's also separate, right? So it's like this is a separate building from then this building. So it's not. It's like I think this could have a religious function, and the building over in the same complex could have an educational purpose, without really conflicting the interpretation.
Okay, so education, religion, and then this one.
I thought this was maybe a liminal space, right? So this is a physical separation area, right? There were no artifacts here. There was nothing that led me to believe that, maybe people just sat around and chatted here. Or maybe it literally was a physical liminal space that separated, the one area from the next.
Okay. In your professional opinion, show me if you think there are divisions in this settlement and where you think they are and what it means.
Yeah, so I mean I think divisions are clearly identifiable by the foundations used in these buildings to the south. All have the cobblestone foundation. Okay. So I would call this, lower skill crafts and or lower residential. Lower class residential. Then you're moving into the market. Oftentimes market areas are lower class as well, or lower status. And then you start moving into the more higher class craft areas, right? And you even see that in the transition in the foundation, right? With the deep slate. This one even has some like chiseled deep slate, right? And has some chiseled bricks. But again, so like stonework, higher class area, and then smithing, metalworking, oftentimes higher class crafts. And then you transition then into scholarly pursuits and areas of learning, and then you move into the highest class area, which would then be the what I'm calling the temple complex and temple garden. And then this altar then being a religious area for essentially this middle class, or potentially even lower class area, right? So, So that those would be the distinctions that I would raise. The other things I would say is that the roads progress out this way, right? In this kind of crafts area where you're not seeing roads going in these other areas, right? It's a central road and that's it, right? And the roads get wider in this area. So there's a lot of reasons I think to interpret, the south of this village or settlement being lower class, moving to higher class, continuing higher class as you go further to the north. I mean, just even the shiny white quartz pillars and all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I hope you like watching me chatter on to Daskalos and giving him my thoughts as to why I reconstructed the site like I did. I know some of this stuff I totally got wrong, but others I think I got pretty correct. But hey, that's archaeology for you. The next episode, we get to see Daskalos' original build and see how close Millie, Oda, and myself got to his actual village. And speaking of which, if you haven't already checked out Oda and Millie's videos, now would be a good time to do that before we get to grading in the next video. Thanks for watching, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!